Everybody. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today is day 7, August the 5th, and we got a really packed agenda tonight. Lots of events, a lot of finals, a lot of upsets, and I'm looking forward to some really good conversations and civil conversations, that is. Okay, so as always, we'll let Frank Dick to introduce the program and the purpose of these meetings. So Frank, welcome back again. A few words on your side.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much indeed, Jameson. My name is Frank Digg. I'm the president of the European Athletics Coaches Association and chair of the Global Athletics Coaching Academy. Now, for every coach in the world, the two most important representative bodies that you should belong to or are part of are the Global Athletics Coaching Academy, which is the coaching arm for World Athletics, and of course your Area Coaches Association. And what's happening here is an Area Coaches Association event. Each area in the world has a coaches association. Well, it's not quite true. All except Africa are actually now up and running. The African one is just about to be pulled together again. Now, running into one of the things that the GACA, the Academy, is organizing is that every time there's a World Championships, there's going to be a World Athletics Coaches Club. And that will be an on-site place. And the World Athletics has agreed that any host country is going who wants to bid for a championships will have to offer a facility on site for coaches to meet, network, get a bit of extra CPD and so on. But the world we're in now is not just about the real world, but the virtual world. And so what's been happening during COVID is, as all of you know, things like webinars and things have blossomed all over the place. And that's actually become a new norm for coaching communication. And so looking at coaches clubs going forward, we're pretty sure we're going to have both forms going on all the time, a virtual form and a real form. Now, we tried out the idea of virtual during the Olympic Games. All areas are doing their own version. Giacomo Galetto, our General Secretary, here in Europe, he put together this particular format, which is every single day. Now, just to bring you absolutely up to date on all of this, I had a great conversation today with Terry Crawford, who I've asked to lead on the World Academy events. And we've now agreed, and we'll be putting this before the board in a couple of weeks' time, that when we have a world event, it will be the areas who look after the virtual versions. That allows the areas to properly serve their own community and link in to the world event, wherever it happens to be. So this, if you like, has been a kind of a dry run. And I'm particularly proud of how my teams organized it, Jimson, who's hosting you here tonight, and Giacomo, because we have over 500 registrations here. And it's been growing all the way through the week. This is your club. This is your association. We need to boost the membership on that. And Giacomo is going to be having a few words with you on that later on in the program. But in the meantime, let me pass you over to the superstar, our incredible conductor of this fantastic orchestra, Jimson Lee.
Thanks, Frank, as always. So I think those who know me are with speedendurance.com and also with the European Athletic Coaches Association. So tonight's agenda, I want to do the first two events, and that's going to be the shot put and then the combined events, because we have two new panelists on tonight, which I'll introduce as we get started. So let's start with the shot put first. We have Sean Pickering on site in Tokyo. It's 2 o'clock in the morning for him, so I don't know how long he'll last, but Sean, welcome back. And I know you're flying out in a couple of hours, so maybe some thoughts on the men's shot put tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Jimson. Yeah, I was lucky enough to stay around there, moving people out of the village and out of the facilities pretty quickly after their event. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get to stay around and watch the shot put. And after Doha, which was such an incredible competition, we were looking forward to the rematch. And I have to say, it didn't let us down either. Great competition and a win for Ryan Krauser, the favorite based on the fact he set the world world record recently. But it was always going to be interesting to see what the others could do. The big surprise probably is it's the only medal, male individual medal from the USA so far. So that's a big shock that Ryan Krauser's the only medal from the US, or the only gold medal. But it was a great competition, and he had a big throw out the gate, which was set the competition up. But I have to say that it was interesting in that Ryan ended up winning with Joe Kovacs in second place and Tom Walsh in third place, exactly the same podium as 5 years ago, excuse me. So very interesting, but also the level of competition was very high. Obviously a new Olympic record, second furthest throw, all-time 23:30 for the win, but two other guys over 22 meters, and even Tom Walsh at 22:47 would have been the Olympic record until Ryan Krauser 4 years ago. It was the same distance that Ulf Timmerman threw back in 1988. So very high standard. But also, I think what was interesting was that there's a very good representation from around the world. Martin Bingis sent me a message and saying it was interesting. There were a couple of African athletes, two from Oceania, obviously 3 guys from America. So it was very good representation, 2 guys from Europe. One thing of note, I was particularly interested, the guy in 5th place is a guy called Zane Weir, who's actually a South African born competing for Italy, and coached by Paolo Dal Solio, who was led the 1996 Olympics through 5 rounds, only to finish 4th. So it's nice that his athlete came through and finished 5th today with 21:41 personal best. But the interesting thing about Zane, he's about 6'1" tall, about 185 or so, and he weighs about 108 kilos. So a little fast guy, good move, and not many people have seen him before. He's really come through this year, and Paolo's done a good job with him. So we've got the man mountain that is Ryan Krauser, but we've also got some smaller, faster guys coming through. It is noticeable that this was the first major competition in shot put. There were no gliders represented, even in the qualifying. So all rotational throwers in the men's side, so that was significant, but a great competition. So very high standard and very good representation.
Great, thanks, Sean, for the update. I'm just glad it didn't rain, so that was my only thing. Okay, we got a packed agenda. Let's move on to the combined events, and I want to talk about the women's heptathlon. So here I'm going to call on one of our new panelists, Kelly Sotherton. Welcome, Kelly. So Kelly, for those who don't know, she's a 3-time Olympic medalist in Athens and Beijing in both heptathlon and the 4x4 relay. She's also a bronze medalist in 2007 World Championships, and now she's a high performance coach in heptathlon and the 400. So welcome, Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. So yeah, so what did you think of the, start with the women's heptathlon. Thoughts on that event first?
Well, obviously from a British perspective, very disappointed because obviously we want to see Katarina Johnson-Thompson and Nafi Thiam fighting it all the way together. However, it was still a really close contest. And what struck me is Dutch heptathletes have always been really strong, but haven't really been strong as a group for a while. And so it was very, very good to see now 2 Dutch girls in that mix again, being really strong, but also the 2 Belgian girls. So that struck me for those 4 places going to those 2 countries. It shows the strength and depth in those 2 countries, and I'm sure it will bring on more. I was disappointed at some performances. So seeing like Annie Kunz, who had a great 6-7 from the US champs, come here, still become 6th, still great performance, but still be under par. I mean, I know she did nearly stack it in the hurdles, but and the Hungarian who did well and got 6 score on her 6-6. Why haven't these girls shown up? So I'm asking questions that these girls who put great performances in early on in the season, why haven't they come and shown that form when it really matters? Overall, great performance. I love watching the heptathlon, obviously. It's good to see somebody win a double. First time since Jackie Joyner-Kersee, so brilliant for Thiam, with all her issues that she's had. So yeah, good to see the emergence of some new names, and that's a really good positive thing with the combined events. You always see somebody that you don't know come through, and we've seen that.
Great, no, that's great. Thanks for the update. So I want to introduce another panelist who will chime in as well, and that's Laura Turner-Alleyne. She's a former TeamGB sprinter at the Beijing Olympics, also the relay. And she's a 4-time world champion and 5 British national championships across her 60, 100, and 200 meters. Today, she's West London track and field lead sprint coach, hurdle coach, and combined events. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So your thoughts on the heptathlon or decathlon and Kelly's comments?
Yeah, I think I followed the heptathlon more closely than the decathlon, to be honest. I really enjoyed watching Nor Vitz from Helsinki. We've been at a couple of competitions with her this year. So it's been nice watching her kind of season progress, and incredible performance and incredible PB from her these last 2 days. So that was nice on a personal note to see someone that we've kind of been following this season. Again, same as Kelly, you know, I'm very new to the combined events community, so I'm asking questions as to how realistic, how close can athletes be to their season's best across 2 or 3 heps in a season? So what is the kind of the norm headroom, I guess, with scores? Is it normal to be 200-300 points down from a season's best, or do the best girls in the world, are they the ones that are normally kind of within 100 points of their best score? Someone's messaging me now about they can tell me that stat. But yeah, those are the kind of things that have really got me kind of thinking, especially obviously with my now vested interest with combined events, but really interesting to see some new names, lots of European girls up there at the top. So yeah, quite exciting, I think, from a European perspective.
Oh, great. Sean, before you have to catch your flight, anything to add to the combined events?
I was just going to answer one of Laura and Kelly's questions, because they talk about Annie Kuntz, and I know Annie and her coach Chris Mack. I know quite well, and I was speaking to him a couple of times today. Annie had an incredible competition at the US trials. She came kind of, you know, she wasn't known on the scene that much. She's improved a lot in the last year and had the competition of her life at the trials, scoring, you know, very high points and beating some of the more favored athletes. And her coach today, when I was talking to him, said that, you know, that was probably asking a bit too much to come back from that and try and push forward a little bit. She was in great shape, and as Kelly said, she stacked it in the hurdles. She was on shape to, or on course to run really, really quick in the hurdles, and then hit hurdle 5 and nearly lost it. So just did really well just to maintain that, ran in 13.5, I think, but she was on, you know, looking to run 13.0, and just has missed a couple of other events. So yeah, not quite. When I spoke to her coach this afternoon, he was like, yeah, maybe asking a bit too much for her at this stage, but she's really come on a long way. So, and a training partner also, Erica Bulgard, who was 3rd in the World Championships, wasn't quite in form. A couple of little injuries that were you know, losing points. But
yeah, good point. So here's a question for, say, Kelly. There's an expression for the decathlon: day 1 is built for athletes, and day 2 is built for decathletes. And we saw, you know, my Canadian guy went from 3rd to 5th. From end of day 1 and day 2. We still won gold, but still. What are your thoughts about the order of the events? Does it make a big difference? Do you think it changes things?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's like day 1 is speed orientated very much, isn't it? And day 2 is more strength orientated, so more endurance. So because you have to have that endurance to, you know, get through day 2. So it is different, but, you know, decathlon is a true, it is a true reflection of being the whole all-rounder. Whether you would change it round, I mean, in the women's decathlon, if they ever hold it when at the same time, they change the events around. So the middle of day 1 becomes middle of day 2 and vice versa. Nobody wants to high jump on the 9th event. Right? No one wants to do that, but they did that, and that's how our world record's been set. So it's crazy. So it would be good to change around events. I don't know what the implication would be of a score or what the guys would think about it. But, you know, with the difference of the heptathlon, where it's basically speed and run, be a great 400-meter run, and you get through a heptathlon with a bit of jumping and throwing, where the decathlon is very much, it depends what your strengths are, and obviously with the Canadian guy Pierre, like he obviously has a great first day. I can't remember his name. Oh my god, yeah, he has a great first day because he's speed orientated, so but he gets through remarkably well second day, so that's his strength is his first, and his weakness is his second, but it's not a weakness, it's still pretty good, so that's what he'll be looking forward now to, obviously challenge Kevin Meyer's world record, I imagine, up the second day. How he does that is obviously with him and his coach, what he does best without losing any of the positivity of the first day.
Okay. Actually, yesterday we had a great panelist, Dr. Nicola Williams, part of the Fair Play for Women. And I want to ask Laura a question. Will we ever see the 10-event decathlon for women? And if so, when? Which Olympics?
Will we see it, or do I want to see it? That's
both. Answer both.
Yeah.
Yes, Laura Turner. We definitely want it.
I think personally, the girls that I'm working with, I think they'd be fine with a 10 event. I think they'd handle it really well. Well, they'd have no choice. What I do see the difference between the heptathletes and decathletes, and again, my first couple of seasons in working with combined events, is they're very different beasts, men and women. And like Kelly's saying, the women are obviously speed power athletes and will be, world class at a couple of events normally. Whereas the men, they're very different beasts. So I think it would, I'm not sure whether the population of women would have to change the way they're training, or whether it would just attract a different type of athlete to that event. It would certainly change it quite considerably, I think.
I think the pole vault is the one that scares everybody in any event. And we'll get the pole vault later with Herbert after this. But one last question for Kelly before we move on to pole vault. There's a question on the forum here, and someone asked, can Katarina make a comeback after her latest setback? Most decathletes and combined events athletes struggle to get back to full fitness after a major injury. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a major injury. I've had 3 prolapse discs in my back, so it is really, really hard. There's no lie, but it depends on what your previous injury history is, I suppose. And Katarina has had a number of different injuries, especially in those lower regions of her legs, unfortunately. I think she can. She's going to make the right decision, I think, of having some time away and think about and get her mind healthy as well as her body. And obviously next year is a massive year, especially if you're British, because of the amount of championships. So I'm sure she'll want to tackle one or two of those championships, especially hopefully Commonwealth Games. So for me, because I'm the team leader for the athletics team next year for England, so obviously I'd love her to be on my team. But I think she just needs some time away to make sure her body's good. And if she really wants to be considered for Paris, that's what she needs to do. With it being now less than 3 years away, she needs to get this part of her preparation right, and that's recovery. So I'm sure she will bounce back. She's young enough. She has the right mind and mentality, and has a good team around her. And I'm sure she'd seek advice when required. So yeah, I think she will come back as strong as possible.
Okay, well, I hope so. So before we move on to pole vault, any last thoughts, Laura, on either one, the men's and women's?
I think just following on from what Kelly said about Katrina, I think physically, I think it's certainly possible to get back physically, but I think she's doing the right thing and looking at her mental health. I think the physical injury probably is less significant to her than the kind of the emotional and mental damage that's been done from this year and this big injury and having to pull out the Olympics. So yeah, I think taking time away, make sure that her head's in the right place and that she's ready to go. I think physically not a problem. Mentally, she needs to make some good decisions.
Great. Actually, before we move on, I noticed Peter Erickson is here. He's with Canada's Own the Podium program. Peter, any thoughts on Canada, first place?
Well, I of course, it's good to break the Olympic record with 9,000 points. And I think the second one who finished 5th, he seemed injured to me. And I said that yesterday too. I think he had a knee problem. So it showed in his high jump. And he usually fades a little bit in the second day, but I think he held it together quite well. Anyway, despite the situation. I don't know any details about if he is injured or what the injury is, but it was obvious, I think, that there was something going on.
Okay. So Sean, last.
Just one quick thing. Kelly and Laura are talking about, the speed power-based heptathletes. I think one other thing that was noticeable, the first two girls in the heptathlon today are very good throwers, and that was the separation. And actually, it was probably what cost Nuke a closer chance or more of a chance of winning the gold medals, that she's actually an excellent javelin thrower, and she was very much under par in the javelin, even though she threw 52.3. But Nafi threw 54. We were expecting a Nuke to get close to the 60 meters, and it would have been a very interesting 800 meters. But both girls throwing 15.5 meters in the shot and mid to high 50s in the javelin. It's an important thing now going forwards, I think.
All right. Actually, how can I forget Frank Dick to moderate or ask about the decathlon, former coach of Daley Thompson. Frank, your thoughts on tonight's either event? You're on mute. You're on mute, Frank.
I'm trying to keep my dog quiet. Yeah, I thought the heptathlon had a couple of very interesting features to it. Oosterwegel, there's not been much mention of her this evening. Can somebody tell me what was very unique about Oosterwegel's performance here? Okay, I was extolling the virtues in Daegu of Jessica doing 4 lifetime bests in one heptathlon. What did Oosterwegel do? 5. She pulled herself from being 216 points off the pace to going up and getting a medal, which I thought was, well, I thought it was pretty remarkable. And I think that the heptathlon competition itself showed another bit of huge character on Tiam shifting herself from 3rd on the rank in the order and the end of the first day, and then powering her way through to the end. What a piece of character! But yeah, just very quickly onto decathlon, because I think we're going to be running short of time here. Is that I thought Warner had an outstanding job. Did an outstanding job. I thought Peter did mention it last night. The one wobble he could have had was pole vault. And yet, what did he do? Again, a piece of character under pressure, equaled his lifetime best. And again, congratulations on such a solid second day on top of the first day, and coming back to the 9,018 points. Another bit of huge character in this, and Sean, I'm sure, must have been pretty pleased with this performance, was with Meyer's throw in the javelin. That was pretty impressive at 73.09, which pulled him well back up again, so that when it came to the 1,500 meters, he could round the entire thing off. Okay, it's 8.726, which is a pretty tasty score for a guy who's had a lot of problems over this last year with injuries and setbacks. But the other guy I think that Australia must be jumping up and down about is Maloney. I think that was a fantastic endeavor. It's not often that we get round to the 1,500 meters as going to be the thing that's going to separate the medals at the end of the day. But he managed to hold on fantastically, I think. I think he just had the right margin between himself and Scantling, who could have ended up with the 3rd place himself. And yeah, what an exciting event. Both events, huge advertisements for the combined events. And I hope that's excited kids all over the world to get more involved in them. Back to you, James.
Great. I think let's move on to pole vault, because we have a lot to cover. And I want to call on Herbert Zingon, Germany. He's a world-leading strategist in high-performance coaching development across all events, German national coach in women's pole vault, and personal coach to several Olympic and world champions. So Herbert, welcome back again tonight. I'd like to hear your thoughts about the women's pole vault. No Sandy Morris, no Alicia Newman, no rain, and it was quite a competition. What are your thoughts on tonight?
Well, the first hour of the competition was a complete disappointment. No hiding 2 girls, and only 4 girls were able to jump the 470 as the second height in the competition. And this makes clear that the progression of 450, 470, 480 that the board has chosen was too steep for this day and for this field. We can say that in 2019 we had the same progression, but remember we had a climatized stadium and we had a field with higher quality than this year. Maybe due to COVID, may have been played a role before. And in Doha, I just checked it out. We had 7 480 plus jumpers and another 7 470 plus jumpers in the field. And today in the Tokyo final, we had only 4 480 plus jumpers and 4 470 plus jumpers. So in the end, only 4 of this field of 15, I think, was able to clear the second height, and this made it a very strange competition in the end. I also contacted 2 of the coaches who were in the stadium and asked them for their impression, and they both said that the progression was just too steep under the conditions and for this field. The final phase of the competition, though, was very interesting, with the remaining 4 athletes fighting back and forth, changing positions a couple of times. In the end, Katie Najat won with a very nice jump. And the athlete with the best physical conditions, she's a tall athlete, she's a very fast athlete. Maybe technically you can question some of her technical patterns. And she just won over the best technician in the field, Angelica Sidorova from Russia, which started the most secure in this field. She just made every height up to 485 without any loss. And she seemed as the clear winner of this competition until she had the first loss at 490, and at the second attempt, Katie Najat cleared this height and won the competition. To wrap it up, the result of the first 4 athletes appears to be okay. It's about the same, a little better than 4 years ago or 5 years ago in Rio. But it was a total disappointment for the rest because already the 5th athlete only had 450 as the final result in this competition. This brings me to the big picture because I think the women's pole vault, just to a less extent, the men's pole vault is stagnating further. Only 3 athletes have been able to jump 5 meters so far, with no 5-meter performance since 2016. And the last 5-meter performance before that, outdoors, I must say, was 2009. So I think we don't see as much as progress as in other events. And looking for the reason is probably that the introduction of the flexible poles 60 years ago made the pole vault a very an event that costs a lot of money for the poles, for the equipment, for the infrastructure. And so it's not able to develop the pole vault like we can develop the sprint or maybe the other jumping events, even in the rich countries, which I don't have a solution for that, obviously, but I think we must try to develop the athletes we have better than before, make them better technicians so they can use their physical abilities better than we have seen in this competition.
Okay, but there has to be a way to promote pole vault globally around the world for women. I mean, we're seeing men jumping 6 meters, 6'10", 6'19". So what can we do for, globally to help women other than making Decathlon a women's event?
Yeah.
Any ideas? I mean, it's...
if I can put an answer in here, I really think the Decathlon would have helped. About 15 years ago, I remember there was the decision not to include the Decathlon for the women into the major championships. It is an official event, but it is not in the major championships. The Heptathlon stays there. And as much as I can remember, I've been talking to Ilse Bechtold. She held the chair in the IAAF at the point time for the questions of the women's competition, and she was very much for the decathlon of the women. But in the end, the coaches of that time and the athletes at the time, they really didn't want the decathlon to come. So this may have played a role at that time, because training would have changed completely. And also the pole vault was still very young. So there was a big problem for the athletes of the time to get into the pole vault and into the decathlon. If there would be a decathlon, I'm sure we would have more pole vaulters all over the world. But in the end, you need the infrastructure, you need the poles. The flexible poles are very costly, and you need different poles for training, for different training and competition situations, which is bringing up new problems for traveling with poles all over the world, which is almost impossible now. So several American athletes have pole bags in Europe that they're using when they're competing in Europe. Not all overseas athletes can afford that. That's for sure true.
No, yeah, definitely a good point. And I know on my Twitter, I made a bold statement saying that in Brisbane 2032, which is 11 years from now, I actually said that we will see the women's decathlon in Brisbane, but we'll see in 11 years if I'm right or wrong. So, okay, let's move on to the triple jump. Exciting event. I'm going to call on Peter Stanley. He's on the call tonight. So Peter is an international acclaimed triple jump coach to world record holder Jonathan Edwards. He headed TeamGB athletics, field, and combined events, and his development of high performance coach and athletic partnerships. So welcome back, Peter. So we had no Christian Taylor. That didn't matter, obviously. So what are your thoughts on tonight's men's triple jump?
Well, again, it just proves that our sport is truly global. I think we had 4 different areas represented over the 12 athletes in the final. Top 8 was good to see, all over 17 meters, which is what you'd expect. 1798 winning jump is absolutely brilliant. Obviously knocking on the door of true elitism in triple jump. So that was great. I think one of the things that really surprised me was the similarity of the technique of the athletes. They all ran very similarly. Certainly on the final aspect of the approach, very little preparation or over preparation into the hop takeoff. Certainly the top 5 all used the double arm shift, which they achieved in different ways as they actually hit the board or just got to the board. A couple of them actually slowed themselves up just very slightly. But the coordination of from a running arm action into a balanced arm action, double arm, was great across the top 5, definitely. So it was really good to see. So they all had horizontal momentum, and they all worked very hard to keep that. So we had nice, even rhythm throughout, and not an awful lot of airtime, as in vertical airtime.
There's some interesting stats on the chat. Kevin Ankrum has posted some screenshots, so that's interesting. So I think for the men's triple, again, it's one of those events that, it all comes down to speed, power, strength, getting the ratios right. Who do you see next as the next, like dominant triple jumper? Is there anything different that you think they should do technique-wise, or is it just survival of the fittest, as we saw with Christian Taylor? Is it just a matter of attrition, staying healthy? Is there anything, that can really, because we've seen like in shot put the difference in events and how they changed their style. We've seen in high jump, the event. In triple, there's really, other than like the double arm action, it really is nothing. No, is there anything exciting that they could do to make it better athletes, better performance?
I think speed is dictating now the distances. It's as simple as that. I don't think you can get towards 18 meters without having good ground speed and good limb speed once you've got to make those 3 landings. So I think that's what it's coming down to. It's obviously it's triple jumps, so it's going to have a major plyometric effect, but we're talking of certainly sprinter type athletes now, rather than the heavier athletes.
Yeah, I guess controversially, I was trying to say something and Kevin picked it up on my chat. How about shoes and spikes? Do you think those will be the next addition in triple jump? I think spikes triple jump can make it, better 60 feet triple jumper?
I think so, yeah. I think, we've had various comments regarding the track. Can they do anything else with the track? What are they going to do with the spikes? What's going to be allowable? What's not going to be allowable? And I think that's the way forward. We've seen it with cycling, with swimming, etc., etc. It'll be possibly technical innovations.
Okay, anybody want to chime in on shoes, Frank?
Not so much on the shoes, Jimson, but just to sort of endorse what Peter's just been saying about speed, because I think what went under the radar, Peter, was the fact that Jonathan was quite capable of getting a medal in the indoor 60 meters in UK indoors. He really was a fast young man, and I thought at that time, I wonder if this is the future, sheer speed to be the dominant factor.
I think, yeah, and I think the major component of any jumper should be acceleration.
Yeah.
It is that short 40 meters of running, 45 meters of running, whatever it's going to be. And as you're well aware, Frank, after 60 meters, the wheels came off for Jonathan anyway.
For sure.
He was lost. He just could not relax and ease things back. But yes, I think acceleration is going to be one of the major priorities in any training for a triple jumper now. And I would suggest that our better sprinters, who possibly aren't going to make it as elite sprinters, should be turning to triple jump. Historically, we've had some turn to long jump, but I've long advocated that because it's a horizontal event, the faster guys should be doing triple jump and not long jump.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so I guess the last question I had was, are we living in a land of specialists? Are people specializing too early? I mean, when I was in high school, I did long and triple. Even in university, I did 2 events. You saw that in the American with the high jump and long jump. So when will we start seeing people double up again, or is it just too specialized?
Is that to me?
Oh, either Peter or Frank, either one.
I think it will come down to the individuals, Jimson. I think it's what anybody to run at full pelt and to then triple jump, land that hop. Certainly, initially landing the hop, there's an element of bravery involved, and it's a different type of bravery than a long jumper would utilize if they were going to just change direction of that jump when they put their foot down and look for vertical lift. Whatever angle you take off at the triple jump, the best angle you're going to land at is that angle, and probably it's going to be a worst angle. So, I think there's an element of bravery. It'll come down to individuals and what individuals can actually deal with on that first landing and subsequent landings, and certainly without losing another meter per second in speed, perhaps.
Frank, you had your hand up on that?
Yeah.
It's a much bigger discussion, this, and maybe we don't want to spend too much time on it tonight, but I hope on other evenings. I think what you've got to bear in mind is the performance pathway, the high performance pathway. What we're trying to do in sport, in track and field athletics, for the most part, is to get the peak performance between the ages of 24 and 28, 60% of the medalists in Olympic Games and so on, between 22 and 30, 22 to 85% of the medals will go between the ages of 22 and 30. Now, we know that. And it was a very interesting, a few months ago, I had to do a webinar for India where there was a big discussion on specialization and on talent identification. And we should at some point get a hold of a guy called Arnie Golish to speak to us as an association or as a group of coaches, because it's quite clear that talent identification is a waste of time. The earlier you put somebody on an ID pathway, the more likely they are not to achieve when they get to the peak performance years. And if you go back to the former years of East Europe, one of the things they insisted on was that there would be no specialization before the ages of 16. So what was happening at that point, and my colleagues Kelly and Laura will be interested in this, is that every young athlete had to do multiple events up until the ages of 16. Not only in terms of giving a broader coordination profile in young athletes, but also to make sure that they were attending to speed, strength, and endurance at the same time. So coming back to the point, I think one of the mistakes that are made in high performance programs at the moment is to stream kids into a talent pathway too early. For sure, these early pathways will deliver world-class performances at world junior level. But how many world junior medalists are scoring when they get into senior level?
Yeah.
And I'm quite sure you all know the statistics on that, but it's less than 20%. Less than 20% of the medalists at a world junior level will medal at world senior level. That is an extraordinary attrition rate, but I think it underlines the importance of not specializing too early.
Yeah, I know Kelly actually posted on Twitter a few days ago about the exact same thing you said. And I think Kelly, you want to elaborate on that quickly?
Yeah, I just think, like I've just put in the chat, like we're looking at athletes and their talent, but I actually believe it's very much about the talent of the coaches. And if a coach doesn't branch out in all areas of coaching, in run, jump, throw, endurance, all those kind of things, how are they ever going to apply that to young athletes? And so, you know, why would you not want, if you're going to be a sprinter, you need to be able to be good at bounding and plyo. So surely that's jumping. And if you need all those kind of skills to be the ultimate performer in any event. So, but I think it's not necessarily the athlete. I think it's more about the coaching talent and coaches being more broad with their knowledge. Having a specialism is great. However, broad knowledge and having that basis and applying it to your athletes will give them a great opportunity to be more successful in whatever they choose. So I actually think it's more about coaching talent than it is athlete talent.
Can I just pick up on that when you think you're dead right? But also, if we come back to the world that we're in, Kelly, the combined events, if Harry Mara was on here, he and I would normally have our normal ding dong, because he believes that every combined events coach must be a master of all events, right? But yeah. I couldn't be. I couldn't work with Daly that way. I had to have another 4 coaches involved in their specialisms, because I just couldn't keep pace with the boy growing the way he was growing. And I think the point you're making is very, very relevant. And that is, you have to make your mind up early just how far you're going to go in your range of events. But you have to understand at the end of the day that you can't know everything, and you must never make an athlete the victim of your own limitations. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I think every coach has to simply know three things. You got to know what you know, you got to know what you don't know, and you got to know somebody who does, and get them back into the equation.
I think, unfortunately, Frank, a lot of people don't know what they don't know.
Yep.
They think they know it all.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, someone commented saying that a lot of the problems is the pressure from these governing bodies, putting pressure to get medals. We've seen countries don't send their athletes because they won't come top 8. I don't know if Peter wants to talk about the Own the Podium program, or is that too controversial? Save it for the end. It's up to you, Peter. I don't know.
Well, it's not very much different from what UK Sports started in whatever year that was, 08. And the focus is, of course, on medals, right? And these days, many countries have shifted that, and talking about medals is nothing we should do, and we should talk more about participation. But On the Podium then has a talent program, and they look at gold medal profiles and projections for how you get from being a talent up to the senior level. And it's very few sport that actually stands to be true. And I think we're missing out, as Frank said, and Kelly agreed on that, it's the talent of coaching instead that is more important, and we're losing out on that big time. So I think by time this whole talent scheme is going to filter out, and we need to change the approach. And I don't know, by changing from medal count and high performance into participation is going to solve the problem.
No, I agree with that. We're exactly halfway through the program here. We have half the events to cover. I want to change shift. We can go back to these topics after. I want to change shift to the hurdles, and I want to call back Rita Engelbrecht. Welcome back again. Rita is a world authority, high performance in the short and long hurdles, formerly South Africa head hurdles coach and coach to several Olympic hurlers and mentor to coaches. So welcome back, Rita. I want to hear about, I think all like Paddy Power and Ladbrokes Coral and Betfair, all those companies, you know, people lost money today betting because everyone had a sure bet on Grant Holloway tonight. And we saw what happened. And the funny part is that the, you know, had Omar McLeod won the 100 meters in Jamaica, the fourth place guy would have stayed home. And in fact, the third place guy won the gold tonight. So Rita, what are your thoughts on tonight's hurdles?
Well, first of all, I have to say, Sean and I, if we had to make a bet, wouldn't have won. But Kevin Ankrom, he would have won because he told me yesterday I must watch Hansler Parchment. He is somebody to watch. I just want to say one thing, and that is that if you look at Parchment, 1.95 meters tall, 31 years old, that 1.95 meters is already a plus for somebody who is really out to prove himself at the Olympic Games. I must say that after his world record indoors over the 60-meter hurdles, nobody thought that Grant Holloway would lose. But I read quite a few articles and I saw what he said. And he said that he always goes out fast. And he's done it very successfully in the past. So why he thought it would be okay, but he tensed up on the last two hurdles. On the other hand, if you compare the 100 hurdles and the 110-meter hurdles, both the Americans were ahead on the 8th hurdle, and they both lost. Okay, so I think that it is out of the 28 gold medals at the Olympics, the Americans won 19 up until today. Okay, so now they're 19 out of 29. And I think that is a wonderful achievement to bring in variety. And I think that Grant, being still so young and very confident and very fast, I am sure that I'm sure his heart is sore tonight because of the goal, but he will come back. And I think, and I still want to say that Alan is also an American guy that I think is going to be watched for the future. He is light on his feet. He has got a lot. From a coach's point of view, what do you say to your athletes, I think, if you watch this? Because if you watch all these races, you get motivated and everything. I think that the specificity of strength, speed, and hurdle endurance must be emphasized in hurdling. And it must start from a younger age. And we talk about specializing at a younger age. And I think that it's not going to be long before athletics is going to follow the rest of the world, where we see 16-year-olds in a semi-final in a Grand Slam in tennis. We are moving towards that. We're seeing younger and younger athletes coming up. And I think, and as somebody has said, these youngsters know everything. If they set their mind on it, they are going to, at 18, 19 years old, they are going to do a lot. So we already see it all over the world in other sports. So I think it's not long before we are going to get there. I know that we talk about a lot of speed and a lot about strength and experience. I think some of the youngsters are so full of self-belief, it doesn't matter to them. So that is as far as I would like to say. Is don't take anything away from Levi, that came third. Fantastic result for Jamaica. I think that is good. That Grant needs something to work for after his world record in the 60 hurdles. And as I say, there's a lot of other athletes coming up. Again, same as 100 hurdles. Last one, 13:38. A little bit disappointed in some of the lower, from about 5, 6, 7. I don't think it was as good. I think the 400 hurdles steal something away from the 100 hurdles, and they're not up to the scratch or the performing as we would have seen. 13:04 is a good time, but I think everybody would have loved to seen it sub 13. That is my take on the 110 hurdles final.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very insightful. So I know there's a question on the chat here. Maybe someone can answer it. So I know when you run the 100 meters flat, you exhale when you leave the blocks. And I know like in Ben Johnson, he breathed twice in his race for the Valsalva movement. So you breathe and you breathe. And I know like Linford Christie wouldn't breathe at all. He held his breath for the whole time. So the question on the forum here, the chat, was does anyone know Grant Holloway's breathing pattern? Or in general, do you even focus on breathing patterns? This is for Alan Wisberg. Anybody here know about breathing in hurdle events? Is there a better way, timing? This is for you, Malcolm.
I don't know.
Not Malcolm, for Alan. Tough question. Okay. Okay, well, that's fine. Any other thoughts on the hurdles tonight? I think it was quite exciting, but unfortunately, it was too early in the morning for a lot of us. We had to catch BBC. There were a lot of finals in the morning session today, which was a bit hard for UK people. Okay, so we've done the hurdles. Oh, Frank, one last thought on
just a quick observation, really. I'm not sure if everybody else has been watching, but well done, Kelly. I think we've just been watching you auditioning for MasterChef. Certainly an extraordinary example of multitasking. Well done.
Oh, I turned my video off, sorry. I'm listening and cooking my dinner. Sorry, guys.
Okay, no problem. Okay, of course, okay, Kevin mentions that breathing pattern is to the first hurdle, which is usually true, I know, but still, look, anything goes, like Rita, we talked about this last night, hurdles, anything goes. There are 10 hurdles. You can hit the first, you can hit the last, you can not be fast enough and be clean, but anyway, that's, still, it's one of my favorite events to watch. Actually, most of my events are fun to watch. But anyway, I want to move to sprints to 400 meters. I believe Christine is here. Christine, are you here? Yes, I see Christine. Yeah, here she is. So quick intro for those who don't know Christine. Christine Harrison-Bloomfield, former TeamGB national team athlete, now a high performance sprints coach. And she's worked with Olympic gold medalist Christine Ohurugu. So welcome back. And I want to hear your thoughts on the men's 400. We talked about this yesterday in the semis, but what are your thoughts on tonight?
Okay, Stephen Gardner won, obviously we all know, 25 years old. But what I was disappointed with, he was the only one that went sub 44. That's the first thing. It was good that we had a Bahamian, Colombian, Grenadian come third, second and third. However, what I said from the semi-finals is he just went at a steady pace and he just picked them off one by one. And what he did in the home straight is he held his form a lot, but Karani James came out and he blasted out. Maybe because he was in the inside, maybe he panicked a bit. But Karani James has done that before, where he's overcooked it in the first 300 meters and then coming home, he's dying in the last 50 meters, or he's not able to maintain his pace. So for me, I wasn't surprised that Stephen Gardner won it. Plus, he's a reigning world champion at the moment. But what was really interesting is that Michael Cherry, was the only person in the final that ran a PB, 44:21, and that no Americans won a medal. And I'm not sure why. Michael Johnson is saying that they haven't traveled well, the performances are down. I'm not really sure why, but the performances aren't really outstanding and amazing, considering if you look at the hurdles, the 4 hurdles, and women and men, and what they've achieved. Are we doing something wrong in the 4 flat? Because they're able to sustain a pace and run like near enough world-class times, but the flat 4s aren't doing it. So I'm not sure what other people's opinions are on that. Or is it just that we've just got a huge amount of talented young athletes in the 4 hurdles. Yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, it was rare to see no Americans in the medals, but the 400 is in cycles. I mean, I think every 20 years, USA, has like 8 guys who can actually, represent one country. So I think, the 400 is just one of those volatile events that just comes and goes. A couple of superstars come on board. And that's what you need. We saw that for the hurdles, both hurdles, women's and men's 400 meter hurdles. Success breeds success. So when you have someone dominating an event, it gets kind of boring, it's okay. But when you have 3 people pushing each other, that's when you see really fantastic performances. And that's why you saw, I think, fantastic performances in the both 400 meter hurdles. But still, it was fun to watch. And the thing is, I guess before I get into the relays, and please stick around, Christine, but the schedule, I don't know who did the schedule this year, but why are the 400 meter finals for women, like why are the heats for 4x4 for women before the 4 finals, right? I don't know who's in charge of scheduling, but I'm definitely not impressed with the scheduling this year. But we'll get to that. If someone has a comment on that, please chime in. But I'm not impressed by the double schedule, and I'm not impressed by the schedule overall this year, plus the time change. But it's okay. At least I watched it from 11 to 2 every day. But let's move on. If anyone has anything else to talk about on the 400 meters, because I can talk about that all day long, as you know, speed endurance. Talk about the relays. Let's start with back to you, Christine. Back on the 4x1 women's relay heats. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, the Great Britain team ran a phenomenal time of 41.55. It's a national record. What I was interested in, because usually Great Britain tends to be very finicky about people and going out of their lane. If you look to the Jamaican on the third changeover and the fourth changeover, there was a fumble. The girl on the third changeover, she actually held, the second leg runner actually held the girl's hand to put the baton hit in. The girl on the last leg, she actually, the third leg runner actually came out of lane. She actually did 3 steps on the line, or out of her lane actually, and then came back in. So I was surprised that we didn't complain about that. But what I think is the girls are very slick. They've been running together for over 4 years now. Asha, Imani, Dina, and Daryl. But you've got to also look at the foot speed that they've got. They've got 2 sub-10 runners now, where we didn't have that before. So they're more a powerhouse. But the Jamaican team was a young team. So I don't think that people were saying, oh, Great Britain are going to win it. But not necessarily, because the Jamaicans are going to bring in Elaine Thompson and Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, if Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price will actually run. But it's about the slickness of the baton. It's not necessarily about the foot speed, because we've got a girl in Great Britain that's run 11.3 in these championships. Imani ran 11.15, Dina ran 11 flat, and Daryl ran 10.96. Now, they're not the fastest 4 girls in the whole relay, but they got the baton round in the fastest time. So I think it's about efficiency. It's about the speed of the baton through the relay zone. And I think that's what's happened with the Chinese and with the Swiss, actually, because the Swiss have actually run a national record of 42.005. So I think it's going to all come down to who's the most efficient, who's the most effective within the relay zone. It's not going to be about the speed necessarily. The Jamaicans, will probably win it if they get the baton round, but it is about the efficiency and the speed of the baton in the relay zone.
Right. Okay. So I guess Dina is, she's back 100%, but she's not injured, but she's good enough for the relay. So it's kind of nice to see her that pass up on a 200 and stick for the relay. I guess that was okay. But anybody think that's risky? Or would you put someone who was injured 4 weeks ago and put her on a relay? What are your thoughts, Christine? Do you think is she 100% healthy, really?
Well, she's coming back from injury, so I think she is healthy. I think she knew that she couldn't get a medal in the 200, so there was no point in contesting that personally. Putting her on the bend, I was quite surprised that they put her on the bend, but she is the most prolific bend runner one of the most prolific bend runners in the world. So if you're going to put her anywhere, that would be the place to put her. Otherwise, you'd have had to move the relay team around a bit too much, and you'd have had to get rid of some people. And there's another girl, Ashley Nelson, who I don't think is as efficient and as competent as, she's very good, but she's not as good as Dina, and they need Dina on that leg. So I don't think she's as bad as, I know, you got to look at the emotions of the day, like coming in 100 meters, she expected to get in finals. This is what she was aiming for the whole year. She had a fantastic World Championships in Doha, but I think she's not as bad as everybody thinks she is. It was bad, but she's coming back from injury. She's not actually injured now. So otherwise, how would she run the 11 flat? She would have broken down by then, but yeah, she's fine. I think she's fine. Otherwise, I don't think she'd put the medal at jeopardy if she wasn't.
Okay, that's good point. And then the men's relay, of course, very controversial. The Americans not having a holding camp. They all flew 5 days before the events or individual events. Those who ran that. What are your thoughts on the men's race?
Again, well, the Americans aren't there, are they? They're not there. But I just think it's important that we get a wide, as everybody says, a wider cross section of people. You know, the Chinese, the Japanese are very meticulous in their drilling of people. And you look at them in the diving, in other very fine motor skills, they're very good at that. And they pressured Great Britain all the time in the men's race. So I'm looking forward to them pressurizing the Jamaicans and pressurizing the GB team, because it's not that they've got the best foot speed, but they are so efficient and they are so well drilled. And I think that's the important thing. I think people forget that it's not just about the foot speed, because you can have the best foot speed and be the most incompetent baton changers. So I think that's going to be key in the final of the men.
Yeah, definitely. And that'll be exciting to watch. Anybody want to chime in on the 4x1 before I move on to 4x4? A lot of comments here. Rita, comments on the 4x1?
I think what Christine said is so true, that I know the 4x100, the South African team, they were, according to them, like an oiled machine, and the one guy was not so comfortable after the last semi-final and the 200, replaced him with a new guy. And according to them, there were a lot of confusion. The one runner ran into the other one and they dropped the relay. And after the World Relay Champs, which they won, they wouldn't have won now, but most probably they would have been in quite a good chance for a medal. And again, it was not anticipated enough by the coaches to make sure that the change is good in place, I think.
Okay, great, thank you. Kevin Ankrum, you've been posting a lot of great information, a lot of good stats on the chat. Thank you very much. Your comments,
no problem.
Really.
Just real quickly, you know, having been around the world, coached around the world, relay programs that are successful that we're seeing year in and year out are the ones that have made it a priority. And those programs like China, obviously, Japan, you're seeing the success and the exchange rate at a high percentage. You know, UK, obviously doing the same. As we know, Christine, you know that process of what's in through there, and I've seen. And it just coming back to the U.S., and I've been on several trips with the U.S. Teams, and I've seen them as well too. It's a chance by relay program. We hope that we can just make a chance of that baton being, and it didn't pass out. So the problem is and will that ever change? I would rather see a college 4x1 team that has won NCAAs go and run, because the chance of them being in a final is going to be there, whereas they're just not doing it on the stage consistently. So again, for those in my comments and being in that field, those that are going to be successful in treating the relay as a priority one, we're going to be the most successful at the relay. And, you know, we can get away with it in the 4x4, but you can't get away with it in the 4x1 time and time again.
No, definitely. I know Canada invested a lot of money into the relay program with Glenroy Gilbert, 96 4x1 relay gold medal, and now head coach for Canada. Peter, quick thoughts on Canada's relay program, how successful it is?
Well, it continues doing well, and I think that they get a bit stronger runners now, and they switched up a couple of older guys that was on the team, and they continue doing the same type of program year after year with the camps and competitions. And you're right, it's quite a bit of money that goes into that program yearly.
Okay, Alan Risberg, you have your hand up, comments?
Yep, following on from last night, Jimson, don't you think the Americans took it for granted after the relay changeover zone's been changed, that they just have to show up just with foot speed, they don't need practice changeovers, and they're going to win anyway? Do you think they just took that for granted too much?
I know if I was coaching them, I'd say something different, but you know, at the end of the day, just get to stick around. In the heats or semifinal in this case, just get to stick around. I don't care how you do it, just get it around. But you know, it's you know, it's high pressure, high octane
But Jimson, those weren't even safe passes for the U.S. Those were just foiled passes for the U.S. And again, everyone's going to argue. Yeah, everyone's going to argue about the position of the runners and who they were. That's irrelevant. They didn't make the pass. You can have a bad bend runner, which the third leg was all over the lane. You could see him on the outside of the lane, the inside of the lane. But at the end of the day, the passes were so inconsistent, and they're relying on foot speed only and by chance. And that just goes to show you they're not taking as a priority, and they're not putting the time in to make some consistent, even safe passes. They're not even doing that.
True. John Carter, welcome again. Comments on the relay 4x1.
Yes, my opinion, the only reason I don't think they're going to have a Coleman camp is two main reasons. One reason is the person coach, even is a coach from university coach, or is it their own private coach, or is a club coach, because they will say that, hey, we need time to train my athlete to the event they got into the Olympic team in the first place. And if a national coach says something about it, they just say, well, my athlete will not be doing a relay team. The second thing is behavior. That's a new one coming in, because some of the agencies might say, no, he got some obligations that he has to fulfill as part of his contract. So that's the second reason I think it's not the Coleman camp might not be possible.
Yeah, I know. Years ago, France was hailed as the only team to do the upsweep pass. Everybody else does the push pass, and now we're seeing more countries doing the upsweep pass, like Japan, I think China too. Do you think the technique to use the pass makes a big difference, or is it just a matter of getting the baton around? Peter Thompson, you're on mute. Yeah, on mute, Peter.
Thanks, Jimson. Thank you very much. Yeah, on social media, Frank, yesterday, I don't know if you noticed that people were talking about how great the Alan Wells 4x100 team was in Edmonton. And if I remember rightly, you were the coach to that, and they used a mixture of upsweep and downsweep.
Yeah, it was that's quite interesting, really, I have to say, because a lot of people came to me afterwards and said, the reason you got the gold medal in the Commonwealth Games record was because you had athletes running in descending order of height. Well, I'm not that clever, to be quite honest. And you're right. It actually, I believe you can get away with mixing the techniques. What's the difference between the two of them? You have greater free distance when it's a downward pass, but you have greater stability of the hand when it's an upward pass, because the person going out holds their hand much steadier than a wagging around target of the extended arm. But yet, there was no science involved in that. It was just what fitted the guys concerned.
And with the push pass now, do you think the push pass provides a much more stable environment? I mean, Christine, you've used that one, I'm sure.
I prefer the push pass than the upward sweep, to be perfectly honest. I think it's an easier one to teach, but I can understand why the French, I like watching the French because it is quite quick and you're quite close to the person. And so, they're quite efficient. When you watch the French doing it, they're very, very efficient. And the Japanese, yeah, but I do think this is safer and it's easier to see for the athletes. And it's becoming more highly technical. I know people might not see it as that, but it is. You're running at high speed, you're going to pass a little baton into somebody else's hand. You have to be pretty controlled and pretty coordinated to do that. So yeah, I prefer the push pass personally.
Well, Brooks Johnson, the famous American coach, says the higher the velocity, the harder it is to pass. Like anybody can pass it. I mean, here, I got a baton here. Anybody can pass a baton when you're walking, even when they're warm-ups, when they practice it. Anybody can pass it. But when you're running at 10, 12 meters per second, it's like threading a needle. It's like those biathlon guys, right? They sprint, ski, and then shoot. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right, Jimson, and I think that's why I'm not completely convinced on the push pass. although biomechanically it's more efficient because you've got the free distance, once you get to that level of speed, you've got to make sure the baton goes over. And there's more certainty in the safety of the upsweep. I'm not saying that it's the best technique overall. I'm not saying that. But at very high speed, when you are trying to thread the needle, look for safety.
Definitely. John Carter, last point before we move on to the 4x4.
Okay. Well, in the United States here, we get a whole bunch of college and high schools and club teams, and they use different types of exchanges, hand exchange. So you go to one school or one high school, whatever, it's the hand exchanges are different between one school to another. So the athlete go from, let's say, from a college to a club team, their experience, the club team might use a different hands exchange.
No, most definitely. Okay. 20 minutes left in the program. I want to talk 4x4 relay. I don't know who scheduled the 4x4 women heats before the 400 meter final, but we don't have the Jamaicans in there. We don't have all the great quarter milers there. But who wants? Christine, you want to talk about the 4x4 women's? Yes, you're our sprint resident expert here, other than me. So.
It's interesting because obviously the 400 meter final is tomorrow. Yeah. So, and because they can change the whole team, some people have chosen to run some of their high level players, like Netherlands, they've run a national record, and they chose to run Fenke Bol. I'm surprised that she was running in the heats, to be honest. I thought they were going to save her for the final, but and the Jamaicans and the USA haven't run their best team. So although they won, like US won, Jamaica second, Great Britain third, Netherlands fourth, and then Canada fifth. They all qualified for the final, but the Polish team and I think the Polish team and the Cuban team are going to be very, very competitive when it comes into the final. And the lane draws, it's going to be an interesting race because Poland are inside everybody. So it's Poland, Jamaica, Cuba, and USA in the middle lanes. I think that's going to have a massive impact on the result in the end.
No, definitely. Anybody? Well, I think with in all due respect with Netherlands, if they didn't have Femke Bol and anchor, they wouldn't have made the next round. I mean, her anchor, like, I don't know her splits. If someone has her splits, please post it. But she ran one amazing leg, and she even lost a few milliseconds because she got the baton, and then there's another runner in her way. She had to sort of dodge around. Anybody thoughts about the 4x4 women's?
If I can just say something about the Femke Bol and the team from the Netherlands, is that she ran in the mixed relay, then she ran two 400 hurdles races, three 400 hurdles races extremely well, as we know, third best time ever. And then she also ran in the heat, produced a tremendous surge at the end to get her team through. And she's going to run another race. Now, a lot of people say being 21, isn't that a bit tough on her, whatever. If you watch some of her training, I think she's been prepared for it. And what a talent that is in that team of the Netherlands. I mean, she makes the other athletes look like they're standing still. So yes, it's going to be interesting. I don't know if it's their full strength team, but if they have other runners that they can supplement, because some of them weren't that good, especially in the second leg. But it is going to be a very, very interesting race to watch. Thanks.
No, definitely looking forward to that. Okay, so enough with the relays. We had the 1500 meter, the men's semifinal, 1500. Maybe Peter Thompson can speak on the 1500. We don't have Gunther here tonight. So Peter, you want to speak on that race?
I'd be happy to, Jimson. Thank you for that. Yeah, interesting. I don't know how many of you watched the men's 1500 meter semifinals, but the men in for the first time really, the major championships ran more like the women did in terms of taking both of the semifinals out very, very fast. In fact, getting an Olympic record in the second heat. And the second heat obviously had seen what had happened in the first heat and reacted accordingly. And it happened in both races that there were people in there who are very, very talented 1500 meter runners, but realize they don't have the finishing kick. And so it was to their benefit to have a very fast tempo from the beginning. And it produced some interesting results with, in the final, just one US competitor, 2 from Kenya, 3 from Great Britain, 2 from Australia, and athletes who we expected to get through, like Sadiki from Morocco, was unable to do so. Matthew Centrowitz was unable to get through. So it was an interesting, it was a different challenge for the athletes than they've had before. At a normal championships semi-final stage in the 1500 meters for men, it tends to have been a lot more tactical. And here it was a lot more kind of right from the gun going for it. And it produced, I thought, a couple of really very, very exciting races. 2 athletes were unable to finish. Lewandowski and Suleiman both pulled off with what appeared to be lower leg injuries. And you can draw your own conclusions from that. We'll do the analysis afterwards. And another athlete, a Polish athlete, Rozmis, managed to lose a shoe during the race. And I've watched through a couple of times and I can't quite see where that happened, but he lost a shoe, and that would be amplified given the nature of the shoes these days to have one barefoot and one shod foot. But anyway, I see that he has been put through to the final. So they obviously felt that he was fouled in some way, and they put him through to the final. And then, of course, there's Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and I thought that Timothy Chariot looked very, very good indeed. And Kipsang finished very, very strong. So it's going to be, I think, a very, very interesting final. It'll be very interesting, I think, to see whether it comes back to the tactical final that we saw in Rio, or whether it'll be somebody like McSwain or Jakob taking it out and just running the legs off the others. So I think we've got a very interesting final to come with that.
I definitely agree. I'm looking forward to that. And I think, once again, we need another call talking about the selection process. As the USA selection, top 3 you go, as a Great Britain, or Canada, top 2, or we need to sort of discuss that, because in this case, with Timothy Chariot, he wasn't even selected first. I think he's like 4th ranked. And it's only because the first place guy didn't make it for whatever reason, he was selected. So once again, here we have, 3rd string players or 3rd place at trials players, end up winning the gold, like we had for the Jamaica, 110 hurdles. So, any trials is always going to be unfair, and we can talk forever on trying to find the right selection process for that. So, okay.
Just one final point, Jimson. Do we have time for a quick final point?
Yeah, we got time for it.
It's because it's relevant to all events, I think. This is to do with talent identification. And I think, with all my work around the world, and I'm sure those of you who've done work around the world too, recognize of all the member federations, many do not have an effective competition program. And competition is the best talent ID environment and talent development environment. If you had no coaches and athletes just had competition, they would develop and the cream would rise. But providing competition, it's interesting to note that Great Britain had 3 finalists in the 800 meters for women, all are members of the British Milers Club. And Britain has 3 members of the British Milers Club in the final of the men's 1500. And the British Milers Club, for those who don't know, put on between 400 and 500 races a year around Great Britain at 800, 1500 primarily, with a few at 5,000. So I think that that again shows in those meetings there's an average of 56% people run PBs in those meetings. So the British Milers Club allows the runners to develop their competitive abilities speed-wise, and then they have the league competitions in Britain in which they can develop their tactical nous, and in the championships they can develop that.
No, good point. And I think here, Kevin Ankrum has a good comment here on the chat. I think we might need to change the way we do the advanced process, the faster loser process, because if it's 5+2, so 2 heats, top 5, and the 2 slowest or 2 fastest losers, maybe we should change that. Maybe it should be 4+ something, because in a way it's not fair, because those who run second can watch the results of the first and adjust accordingly. So, is there a fair way? I don't know. Anybody? Kevin, you want to talk about maybe an idea on how to change that, or what do we need to change the timing process?
I mean, I've seen it just for years. I mean, especially in the distance events, it's more about championship racing over time and position and place. So again, the last heat always has a huge advantage of, this is what I need to know of what I need to run. And be it as it may, I think it should all move just based on placing on each heat. I mean, obviously there's not going to be 100% fair way, but I've seen so many of my athletes and so many of my team's athletes miss out simply because they didn't have the time. And again, I've seen a lot of them get in just on placing. So if and how that's going to change, that's way above my pay grade. But at the end of the day, I just think there could be a better system just based on placing, more so than just time.
To that point, Kevin, I agree with you 100%. And I think that the way we have it right now is part of championship racing. What we're having in certain stadia in championships is the announcer in the stadium announcing during, say, heat 3, what the athletes need to do to qualify. And I think that is totally unacceptable. I think that, the announcers in the stadium should not be commentating about what the bubble time is and so-and-so is moving towards it. That is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all advantages, and we're talking about movements of just small. That's an advantage. That's an advantage that if you're in a later
you can
heat,
remove that easily, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but until someone says about it or complains about it, it's just going to stay the same.
Yeah. Alan, comments? You had your hand up?
Yep, I agree with Peter. The announcement shouldn't be giving away advantages like that. It's like inside information. However, I agree with the fastest loser. I'd hate to be, especially in the sprints, especially as I coach females or when I was racing myself, if I went through or I didn't get through and somebody half a second slower than me got in because they're on an absolute rubbish heat in a 100, that's just not fair. So I think the fastest loser works more for the sprints rather than the long distance events, because the sprints you're going maximum, it's a time trial anyway. So I can agree with the longer distance people saying it's unfair, but I think for the sprints it works.
Yeah, Alan, that's what I had more of a thing with. It's really those 1500s, it's really those 800. It's those more. I mean, the sprints, it's maybe a little bit different, but definitely in the 1500, you're seeing it's championship racing. It's not about the fastest loser could be the slowest guy, for an example. But anyhow,
And
I agree with you on that.
Terry made a comment on chat here. Hang on, Frank. That the term fastest loser is just terrible. But I don't mind that term. What I don't like is TV cameras with 2 chairs by the TV set and the cameras on them, and they're showing an arrow calling fastest loser. I don't know if you've seen that. I saw that in Birmingham 2018. But still, don't put them in a spotlight. Let them sit in the chair and wait until they're kicked out of the chair anyway. Frank, your final thoughts on that?
Yeah, just for a bit of mischief more than anything else, I think you've got 2 choices. One, you decide on getting the fastest 12 people into the final. No argument. Get the fastest 12. Or the first 6 in each heat. Don't have any compromises. Nothing in the middle of it all.
Yeah. And then there's a win too, right? I remember I ran 200s in Canada a long time ago. I ran my heat. It was a minus 1.6 win. And then next heat it was like a +3. And those guys all ran fast times. And I watched the next round in the stands, So that's what happens. The win is a big factor too in the sprints. So
can I also say something? Stop having 3 semi-finals, go back to 2. I don't understand it. Have 2 semi-finals, and if it's a speed, it's top 4, isn't it? up to 800. Why we got 3? They're not a semi-final if there's 3. So cut it down.
Kelly, the history of that, Kelly, was in, I think it was the mid 1990s when Primo Nebbiolo wanted to be able to say that more member federations were able to get the athletes through to the semi-finals. So it made it easier to go home and say, oh, our team made the semi-final. And so that's why I remember the council meeting when Nebbiolo said we're going to have 3 semi-finals. John Velzian stood up and said, Mr. President, I'm sorry, there can only be 2 semi-finals. It means semi-final. And Nebbiolo said, I don't care. We now have 3 semi-finals. And so that was the background to that. It was motivated, I think, to help the development of athletics globally, which was a good cause.
And that was in 52 with Roger Bannister. 2 years before he ran his sub-4, he went to the Olympics thinking there was only 2 rounds. He trained for 2 rounds. He gets to the games, there's 3 rounds, and his legs were just dead for the final, and he came in 4th, and all of England chastised him for coming in 4th. But he made the world shut up 2 years later and ran sub-4. So, happy ending for Roger Bannister. We can go on. I got a few more minutes. I want to introduce one last person. That's Giacomo Galetto. He is our very important person, chief VIP at EACA. He's got a few words for us, a big surprise. Please stick around. We got something to show you. Giacomo, on to you.
Yes, thank you, Jimson. I don't know how many of you already visited EACA website. If not, I want to share my screen to show you the website.
You should have.
Because there is some, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the address, athleticscoaches.eu. You can, if you haven't already done, you can register for free. There are three free memberships, but it's okay if you want only the free membership. It's a good access for a huge amount of content. So let me log with my user. I published yesterday a new section, EACA Coaches Club, in the conference and webinar section. If you go here, there are 2 links. One is the footage taken by Sean Pickering during the Berlin 2018 EA Coaches Club. We have actually 9 videos from that event. I published today the first 3, and I'm planning to publish 3 more videos from today till the end of the Tokyo Coaches Club. And next week, we'll start to publish the recordings of this Tokyo EACA Coaches Club. So just to show you here, the 3 videos from Berlin. And another good news is that we are ready for the EACA Club. EACA Club is a kind of social network, similar to Facebook, if you, given the distance with the most popular social network in the world. When you register to the website, even for the free membership, you are automatically a member of the EACA Club. So I don't know if it's clear how to reach here. It's enough to click on this link, EACA Club. And here there's a stream where you can publish any kind of content, videos, text, pictures, anything. I tested it today with some posts here. There's an interesting video of Jacob's training overspeed here. So our invite is to use it. One of the purpose of the ACA is to create a coaches community, and we believe this could be a good instrument, a good tool to do that. We know that the majority of people access the social media through their mobile device. Unfortunately, EACA has not enough resources to develop a mobile app, at the moment. Let's see if the next year we'll be able to do that. So for now, only through the web, only through our web browser. But we hope you will enjoy this. And so if you want to continue discuss about the Olympics after the Coaches Club, you can do it here. There's a way to stay in touch with the people, like the chat. Today, me and Jimson tested the chat, so it's a very, very nice tool to stay in touch with all the coaches. Actually, we have 461 members, so it's a good base to start with, but we plan to reach 1,000 members before the end of the year.
Easily, because we have.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Giacomo. Yeah, all the people registered. We had over 500 people register for this webinars, these series, so they'll be added. Frank, final thoughts before I close it up?
Yeah, well, first, thanks very much indeed, Giacomo. I hope everybody agrees that I've got two really magic people in the EAC team, in Giacomo and Jimson. Fantastic job again tonight, Jimson. I think the range of inputs is now really interesting, and we get into some really deep stuff. I'm so grateful for to all of our panelists and inputters, because that's what makes this stuff work. As Giacomo was just pointing out, this is your association. We want it to grow. We want it to be a community, a strong community, and you're the people who will add quality to that. Please make sure that you're part of it. Get your friends to be part of it, because once we do that, we know we're going to get further resources, and we'll be able to deliver things like apps for you and make the whole world move forward. Giacomo, fantastic job. I'm so privileged to have you on my team. Likewise, Jimson, great job tonight, mate. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Frank. So again, before we go, I want to thank both Kelly and Laura for attending tonight. Great insight on the multi or combined event, sorry. And thank you, Rita, both Peter Thompson and Peter Stanley. Thank you very much. And Christine Harrison-Bloomfield, really appreciate your insights. And Peter Erickson as well. So a lot of Peters here. Thank you again. Again, don't forget, same time tomorrow, 6 p.m. UK time, 7 Europe. And share the link to your friends. It's free. We love insights. We love comments. And we have only 3 nights left: Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday's a very special day because only the marathon is on, and then it might be some really deep discussion. So just because there's no more games, we're still on for Sunday. So 3 more nights. Share the link, and I'll see you all tomorrow.
Jimson, just a quickie. Kelly, your dinner's burning. Your dinner's burning, Kelly. Get to that oven.
It definitely isn't, Frank, so I'm eating it.
Okay. Everybody, thanks again. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Great job, Jim.